welcome to the Beware the Moon podcast. My name is Hannah. Let me move that microphone closer. Welcome to the Beware the Moon podcast. My name is Hannah. I'm sorry for the stretch of silence here. Again, things in my life kind of just blowing up. Been a rough year, to be honest. Had my nana die, and then had all the election stuff. It's not even necessarily bad per se, because I'm not one of those doomsayers. I'm not like, one way or the other, this is going to be the end of the world. I think we should maybe not count our chickens before they hatch, but the stress is undeniable from the election. And then also, I get like a text at least every day, or have been, at least 1 to 12, about election stuff. So it's nice that that's finally over with. But I also got into a car wreck last month, and my truck was totaled. So, and of course, because this is this year, there's no insurance company on his part or my part that wants to take cover for the damages and actually, do what they're hired to do. So I'm having to hire an attorney for that. So it's just been a lovely time. Today, I've been, all that aside, I've been very thrilled to talk about this movie because I've been looking for this movie since I was 16 years old. I'm 29 as of recording this. So I've been looking for this movie for at least 13 years. Okay, maybe since I was 15. I can't quite remember, but it was definitely, I started working at this law office. I was talking to one of my coworkers. Now, being at a law office means you don't have a lot of people who are your age if you're 15 years old working at a law office. So the guy who was closest to me to age, really sweet guy, really nice guy. He was maybe in his 30s. And he and I liked Homestar Runner, so we would, every once in a while, we would talk movies and such. And I let him know, like, I really like movies with cool plot twists. Like, just stuff you wouldn't expect, but actually that makes sense, right? And so he said, oh my word, you have to watch this movie. And he said, he went through it with me. He went through all the plot points, all the major beats. And we got to the end, and I went, that sounds really dope, actually. Like, that sounds super cool. And at the time, I wasn't even that into horror movies, and he let me know, like, this movie's a little gory, it's a little graphic, but, like, it's not too bad. He was like, it didn't give me nightmares or anything, and he was like, I'm pretty sensitive to horror movies myself, I think is what he had said, essentially. So he was like, if I can handle it, I think you could. But he couldn't remember the name of the movie, and so I went home and I Googled it, trying to find it, and Google didn't have anything. And I was like, did I not type in the right thing? Is this really not the the right plot points? Maybe this movie is just some fever dream he had. Like, I had no idea. So then the other day, I say, everything is the other day, right? Last month, at the beginning of the month, of course, you had everybody doing their spooky month stuff. And so Watch Mojo had put out like a 10 horror movies that needed to be revisited. And in that list was this movie. And I watched, of course, they don't spoil anything too major in the movie. They just let you know, like, hey, it's worth a rewatch. And so I thought to myself, this looks and sounds like that thing Armin described to me, and Armin was my coworker. So I went and I found it and I started watching it, and I was like, okay, no, so far, if everything he said is correct, and thus far it has been, this is the exact movie I've been looking for. And it wasn't that I didn't have the plot points right when I was trying to Google it, because I was like, sci-fi movie, and then I like typed in the plot points. But nothing had happened. And so I was like, maybe Google was just stupid at that time. I have no idea. But this is the fucking movie. And I was so excited. And I was like, he was so right. It's such a cool ass movie. So let's talk about Pandorum. Pandorum. That's just a fun word to say, even. Pandorum came out in 2009. And before that, it was kind of in a production hell sort of stage. So originally, this was 2 different stories. And they smashed them together because the one writer was trying to get someone to produce this movie. So he's running around telling everybody this story, and someone goes, hey, a guy I know is writing a story that sounds kind of like that. So he goes to, quote unquote, guy I know, and guy I know goes, this sounds awesome. We should put these 2 things together, and then we can go around and sell this thing. And I'm very glad they did that, because it is actually way better, personally, in my opinion, than the 2 individual scripts, because there was one script that was about a prisoner ship in space that gets kind of stranded. And then the other script was a settler ship where everyone has amnesia. And so they kind of combine these two things together, and fucking Jimmy Neutron brain blasted it. And it is amazing. It's a great storyline. It's not something that you can easily see coming, but it is something that once you're rewatching it, and I've seen it probably 4 times now since finding it, and it's a 2-hour movie, so that's impressive. But you kind of go back through and you're like, oh, like it's not one of those things where you watch it all the way through and then you go back and you're like, there's no hint of this, right? Like I remember watching Scream and for the first time ever, and I had no idea who the killers were. And once I got to the end, I was like, what? I did not see that coming. And then I rewatched it and I realized there's no like real heavy clues. And I realized that Scream, the point of Scream wasn't figuring out who done it. It wasn't a who done it movie. It's a slasher movie that's about scary movies. And so that was kind of not the point, and that's why they didn't really have any of that in there. So after I figured that out, I was like, okay, like they have a purpose for it. It's fine. It's not that they just forgot to put like evidences in through their movie and sprinkle that in. It's just that wasn't the fucking point. So that was forgivable at that point. But this movie has a lot of things that you look at it and you're like, oh. So that's a lot of fun. Now, considering this movie came out in 2009, and at 15 years old, that would have been like 2010 or 2011 for me. Yeah, it would have been 2011 for me. So this is literally like 3 years later. Why didn't anyone talk about this movie? Why didn't I hear about this movie? Like, first of all, because I was very poor. I grew up in a very poor house. Like, I couldn't have ever imagined owning my own PC and then also, like, doing something like this, because that was just so, like, microphones must cost a fortune, which back then they probably did. But I didn't grow up in a house where we went to the movies often. We didn't have cable television or anything like that, DirecTV, none of that. Because that was just an extra expense that we didn't need. So I had not heard about this movie, and so I thought maybe that was why. But on the flip side, let me tell you what also came out the same month as Pandorum in 2009 and in the month before. So September 2009, you've got releases like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Jennifer's Body, The Informant, which I have heard is really good. And this one is really going to blow your mind, Paranormal Activity. So that's in September. Then in October, the month this released, you had more movie theaters releasing Paranormal Activity, because there was a weird thing with Paranormal Activity where you had to request it, kind of a thing. And so the movie theaters kind of had to pick up on the scent around town, so to speak, to see if it would be profitable for them or not. So we had Paranormal Activity come out. We also had Zombieland, The Invention of Lying, which I did see, Couples Retreat, Law Abiding Citizen, which I saw a couple of years later, Where the Wild Things Are, The Stepfather remake, Saw 6, Circuit du Freak, Vampire's Assistant, Astro Boy, and The House of the Devil. So, despite having Dennis Quaid and James from Twilight in this movie, it really didn't stand much of a chance. It sounds like their marketing wasn't that great, because even I had heard of Paranormal Activity before Paranormal Activity came out, and that was because of the viral marketing. I don't know if they just didn't hire someone who understood, or if it's because this is like a joint venture with a German company, so I don't know if maybe they didn't understand how to get the word out to America, but yeah, essentially this movie flopped. And it's really upsetting because, like I said, we have Dennis fucking Quaid in here. We have Ben Foster, who was in the 3:10 to Yuma remake. So that's where I know him from. And I really love that remake. He was also in X-Men Last Stand and Punisher. So if you watch this movie, you look at Bauer, the character, and you think, wow, that guy looks familiar. That's Ben Foster. And you probably know him from X-Men Last Stand or Punisher. Then we also have Cam excuse me. Gigadet. Oh, I don't know how to say this name. My dyslexia will not allow me to say this name. Anyway, Cam, I was watching and I'm like, this guy looks so familiar. Where is he from? And I had to look it up while I was watching the movie, and he's James from Twilight. So that's the funniest thing on the planet to me. I don't know why that's the funniest thing. It just is. Cracks me up. So he was also in Magnificent Seven. He was in Violent Night, which I did watch. I don't remember his role in that. But he was also in The Roommate, which is a horror movie that I remember having a really good marketing campaign when I was a teenager. And then he was also in Easy A. So that's where you might know him from. Personally, for me, it was the James from Twilight thing that really got me. He's got some very, like, he just has, like, a very, like, specific face coupled with the expressions he makes. I'm like, okay, this guy looks psychotic. But also, it's just very, oh, that's fucking James from Twilight, isn't it? And then another heavy hitter we have on this cast is this one I'm definitely going to mispronounce because I don't know how to speak German for shit. But her name is Antje Trau. I feel like everything I said was not even trying to be a German pronunciation because I don't fucking know how to pronounce German things. But she is a German actress. You might know her from the DC universe, but she is also a heavy hitter over in Germany itself, it seems. Considering I'm not from Germany, I'm not in Germany, I don't know many German people. And by German people, I mean people who like live in Germany, are in Germany and that sort of thing. I don't know exactly how big her films are over in Germany, but apparently this production company is bigger in Germany than in America, and same with her, she's bigger in Germany than in America. So she's kind of a heavy hitter, and she's even been tapped, like I said, for the DC Universe movies. I'm not sure exactly which ones because I don't give a shit about the DC Universe movies. No offense to DC. I do love my Batman, but anyhow, like I said, Dennis Quaid, biggest bill on here. And unfortunately in 2009, his name's not big enough to pull any sort of stunts. Like if you next year were like, hey, there's a horror movie coming out that's a sci-fi horror movie and Dennis Quaid is one of the bigger stars in it, probably that would have some weight considering The Substance just happened, right? And so did Reagan, and so did, so many other things. And his son is also kind of blowing up all over the place. So maybe if you tried that next year, it would have a little bit more weight and you'd get a little bit more people involved and, a piqued interest. However, in 2009, that's just not the case. I mean, in 2009, I know Dennis Quaid from Yours, Mine, and Ours. That's where I know him from. The Parent Trap remake. Know him from that. Like, that, it's just not, Dennis Quaid is just not as big in 2009 with people than he is like now, or even before then. He was kind of at like a big lull. I think I probably would have actually known him. I can't remember when What to Expect When You're Expecting came out, but he was in that one too, and that might help a little bit now. But back in 2009, definitely not really much helping him. And then it didn't really help that Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 30%. And for those who are like, what does that matter? Rotten Tomatoes used to be like, especially back then, it used to be like a really big deal. To me, these days, I understand how Rotten Tomatoes works, where essentially they take a pool of reviewers and kind of average their scores. So it really kind of matters, A, how many reviewers have reviewed the movie, and B, who those reviewers are. For example, I think back in the day, there used to be more of like, I follow this specific movie reviewer because I enjoy his taste in movies. I think there's more of that now than there was when I was a teenager. Because when I was a teenager, you would just look at the review scores, and that's kind of what you would go off of in my generation where I was. Maybe it was different in other areas. But either way, this had 90 reviewers, so the average score between all 90 reviewers is 30%, which I think is bullshit. Y'all were just pissy. Y'all were just sleeping. This is a Paul W.S. Anderson gig, which he's the director of this. He was also the director of Event Horizon. So if you liked Event Horizon, you're going to enjoy this movie automatically, because the way this guy does space is very specific, and the way he does his sci-fi horror is very specific. It's a very like distinct flavor. Everything looks a specific way, and it's just very well done in my opinion. Like, you don't get too space mambo jambo where it's like, what are you even talking about anymore? You're not talking about flux capacitors and shit like in depth. He's just kind of glossing over those things and kind of, dumbing them down for the layman, which I am. So it's very enjoyable. It's not, it's not sci-fi for the sake of sci-fi. This is sci-fi horror. So he understands that, and he delivers really well in a way that I like. Like, I would love for Paul W.S. Anderson to be allowed to make, like, 50 more sci-fi horror movies, because they're just, to me, they're so good. They're just so interesting. The way he directs them is very, very fun, very involved, very specific. And this movie, like I said, it's very much Event Horizon-esque. Excuse me, I have to move my microphone again. Set it down to do some editing, my bad. But essentially, this movie it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's Event Horizon's sister movie, because it literally has nothing to do with Event Horizon, but it's spiritual successor. So the plot has, like I said, the only two things in common is that they're in space and things are fucking up. But other than that, I mean, this movie looks and feels the same. So if you enjoyed Event Horizon, you want more of that, honestly, this is a good answer. Because it's a good answer. Like, Paul W.S. Anderson, he's got his own flavor for sci-fi horror, and that's what you're after. And this movie's got it. So that's what I'm going to say as far as non-spoiler stuff. Like I said, this movie's kind of gory. There's some of the CGI effects are shit because it's 2009 and this movie was already struggling budget-wise, and then obviously it bombed. So not great CGI. However, all the practical effects I think are amazing. I think they're good. I think the characters are fun. They're interesting people to watch. Even I call him best friend or new guy. He doesn't speak any English, but he's a great character. You can just kind of tell who he is by how he reacts to things and what he does. So that's a lot of fun. And I apologize. I'm just now realizing I probably sound really stuffy. I've been sick for like 2 weeks. It's absolutely stupid. But yeah, go watch this movie. I would say don't spoil it for yourself. There's nothing as far as trigger-y. I mean, aside from the gore, you don't get to see any like real torture. There's cannibals on board. There's a spaceship stuck in the middle of nowhere. I know I didn't really go over the plot too much, but honestly, it's best to just watch it because of the plot twists. So, and definitely pay attention because it's the little details that add up after the fact, or when you're doing the rewatch, you're like, oh shit, I should have caught that the first time. So go watch that if that's your jam. So I'll explain a little bit more of the plot now, but giving you people a chance to just leave and go watch it. It's on Amazon Prime for free with ads. So go check that out. If you're still like, I'm not convinced, I needed to hear the plot first. So here's the general plot. This guy wakes up from hypersleep in space and realizes something's wrong with his ship. The guy who wakes up is the spaceship's engineer. So he wakes up his lieutenant commander, and the two of them have to figure out why the fuck isn't the ship working, and why aren't they on the planet that they're supposed to be on, and why can't they get to the bridge, and where are the other flight crews? So that's the general plot. Now we're going to get into Spoiler Town, because I love this movie and I want to get into Spoiler Town. So go watch it. Seriously, not kidding. Last warning. Definitely pause, go watch it, stop it, go watch it. You who's fumbling with your phone right now, you who's trying to figure out which tab I'm talking from, here's your chance. I'm going to give it 2, 3, 4, one more second. None of that kind did not make sense. I'm so sorry. I'm sick, like I said. But anyway, now we're talking spoilers. This movie is awesome. Okay? So this movie starts with an explanation. So essentially it talks about how like different kind of steps in space travel, and also as they're doing it, they're telling you the population of the world. So the world's current population, for those who are like, well, what does that matter? So currently the world's population is 8.025 billion. Okay. And that's as of 2023. Now, different countries have different ways of doing their censuses, so that's kind of a number that's in contention. However, that's kind of like the max number is 8 billion. In the movie, you've got like 200 billion people on Earth when they finally launch Elysium. So, essentially, the explanation is, here's this stuff happening in space, here's this stuff happening on Earth that's not good, here's the population. Essentially, the Earth is running out of resources. Is what the conclusion that the movie reaches. And so at like 2173 years, they decide to launch this spacecraft called Elysium, and they're aiming for this planet called Tanis. and this planet called Tanis is being shot for because specifically it has the capacity to hold human life. So the Elysium is this settler ship that is being shot into space, and they're supposed to reach Tanis and start there, and then maybe they can start bringing from Earth over to Tanis. Now, it's a 123-year flight, so it's going to take some time before they can start shuttling people over there. As soon as this explanation is done, we get to see the ship. I watched this movie with my dad for like the third time, and it was so damn funny watching. It's just fun watching sci-fi movies with my dad because he's an engineer, and he's a nuclear engineer, and so he looks at this ship. They're doing this long take of the ship, and he goes, "That is the least stable structure I've ever seen in my life. I would never ride on that thing." Which I think he also said about the Event Horizon, which I think is hilarious. Anyway, so there's this message coming across all these different human languages. They finally end up on English, and in the my brain says cockpit. I don't think it's the cockpit. It's the bridge. That's what it is. I'm so sorry. Like I said, sickness happening. But you see on the bridge that there's 3 people, and they're listening to this message, and you kind of get a focus on James from Twilight, and you hear them saying, basically, the Earth is gone. R.I.P. Earth. You're the last of us. Godspeed. Good luck. Hopefully you make it. So then you get title card, and now we have Bauer waking up. Now, Bauer is our main character. They call him the Boy Scout. Bauer is also, I think it's funny because when someone says Bauer or Bowers, I think of It, the movie It, the TV series It, the book It, and the bad guy from that. So the fact that he's actually the good guy, kind of weird, but I dig it. So Bauer wakes up. He's in this like tight little pod, and it's a cryo sleeping chamber. And this is, like, really fun, this whole thing, because he comes out and he's got this weird film all over his body from sleeping for so long, and he has to, like, peel off the layers of, like, the cryo, like, resin. It's so disgusting, and it's so cool. And it makes me very uncomfy. But the other thing it does is it gives us... Oh, the worst, actually, is if you're a needle person, maybe look away for a second, because there's this giant fucking needle that comes out of this guy's arm, and it is disgusting. But I'm a needle person. It didn't bother me that much. I was just like, ew. So the other thing that this like skin peeling gives us, though, is we get a look at his tattoo on his arm. And what the tattoos in this movie are, they are indicators of who you are, what crew you're part of. So his is flight crew. He's, flight crew 5. He's the technical engineer for the ship. So that's what his tattoo tells him. As he kind of gets up, though, and he's like looking around, he looks into his cryo chamber and he's reading it because he's like, what the fuck is happening? Which you kind of ascertain after the fact. But apparently being in cryo sleep for so long, the longer you're in cryo sleep, the worse it is for your brain to recall memories. So he looks in his little cryo sleep bunk and he finds a picture of a lady he assumes is his wife because he remembers, like, loving her and being in love with her and all of that stuff. So, but he can't remember, like, even her name or, what part of the crew she's part of, any of that stuff. So he's awake for like a good hour and he's trying to get the power on in that area. He can't. He tries to wake up his lieutenant commander. He can't. So he's just kind of sitting there, and then a power surge happens in the ship, and suddenly Lieutenant Peyton's cryopod opens, and this like claw machine, it's like a sideways claw machine that kind of like puts Dennis Quaid out of this little bunk and onto the ground. And it cracks me up because I'm like, the claw, except it's also like, instead of taking, it's giving you Dennis Quaid, which is the fucking weirdest claw machine this is the weirdest claw machine ever. Not that I'm hating on it or saying I wouldn't take it, but that's pretty weird for a claw machine. So Lieutenant Peyton wakes up. Bauer goes over to greet him and let him know what he knows is going on, which isn't jack shit. But we're looking at Dennis Peyton on the floor, and I'm watching on like a big screen with my dad versus my like little laptop or my little PC monitor that is now gone because my dog decided to throw it on the ground. But because it's such a big screen, my dad goes, those are TENS units. He's wearing like TENS units as like little IOs or EODs or whatever the fuck they're called. And I was dying. And I was like, this is why I watch sci-fi movies with my dad. Just so he could be like, those are TENS unit pads. This ship is unsafe. Thanks, Bob. That's also why I won't go into space, probably because I've watched too many sci-fi movies with him. But we get Peyton waking up. He's a little confused. He's like, please get that fucking light out of my eye, Bauer. And Bauer's like, I'm so sorry. So he's like, where's the other flight crew? And he's like, I have no idea. And he's like, how did you wake up? And he's like, the computer system must have just, or the ship's computer system must have just like woken me up, like for some reason. And he's like, okay, that is weird. Because the flight crew is supposed to be here to let us know what happened during their flight, if anything weird happened or wonky, and then also to let us know where we are and pass everything off to us. But not here. And he's like, I don't understand why. And Peyton says maybe they couldn't get to us. Because they look over and they zoom in on this door, and it's the door to the bridge, and it's closed off, it's locked. And so he's like, where's Cooper? Because Cooper's their third guy. This is the thing. Okay. This is the thing that also pisses me off about this fucking, honestly, this is just a typical humanity move. It makes sense, but also I hate it. There's only 3 members of the flight crew per flight crew, and there's only 6 flight crews. So you have only 18 people who understand how to fly this plane, or the ship through space to a different planet. Only 18. And not every one of them has the same set of skills. So, like, later on, they find a guy, and the guy's like, I'm not a navigator. All the stars look the same to me. I have no fucking clue where we are. I can look out at the night sky. I still have no idea where we are. Like, I have no idea. And so, so you kind of get the feeling that, like, there's one person on every crew who knows how to do a specific thing. So there are only 6 people who understand how the ship fully functions. There are only 6 people who understand how to navigate through the stars. You know what I'm saying? And that is not enough people. If you're on a 123-year flight, you know this thing called Pandorum exists, which I will get to in a second. But you only have 6 people who understand how to do the one thing on this ship, and there are like 6,000 people on the ship or some bullshit. I'll get to the exact number soon. But they're trying to settle new life on a new Earth. Like, and you only have 6 people who know how to get there. What? That is underprepared. I'm sorry. It's no wonder this got fucked up. You guys are so stupid. Why did you not prepare better? Anyhow, we were at Cooper. Cooper's MIA. They don't know where he is. Bauer's like, I've looked for him. I can't find him here. So Peyton's a great leader. He's like, I think you should go out there and check what's going on. And he's able to get like the computer systems in that room up. But of course, since it's not the bridge, it doesn't control everything. So he's like, I need you to actually like go climb through these vents and climb out, and I'll lead you around. Like, I'll tell you where to go. They have like little communicators that they put on their collars so they can speak back and forth to each other. And he's like, I'll direct you. So Peyton goes into the vents, and so he's like crawling through these vents. Another like power surge happens, and Peyton doesn't go through the vents. Bauer does. And so as Bauer is climbing, there's a power surge, and Peyton's like, I don't know what the fuck that's about. And Bauer explains to him, like, that's the reactor. It's trying to restart itself, but it can't. It needs to purge its system. And Peyton is like, how in the goddamn hell do you know that? And he says, because I am the flight engineer. I know everything about that reactor. And he was like, so you remember your life? And he's like, no, I just remember everything about that reactor. Like, and they explain, like, Peyton explains, like, it takes a while for you to get your memories back. And he was like, last time I woke up, it took me quite a while to get everything back. So don't expect everything to happen right away. But because of their training, they still remember everything they're supposed to remember about the flight itself. Not necessarily where they're going, because they have a conversation, Peyton and Bauer does, and Peyton is like, I don't think we were meant to go back. And Bauer's like, what do you mean? And he's like, this ship is built in such a way that I don't think we're out navigating the star. We're not surveying stars, and we're not gathering minerals and stuff from other planets. We're a cargo crew, and we are the cargo. And so that's when they kind of remember, oh yeah, Elysium, Taunus, blah, 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 blah. But as he's going through these vents, right, at some point he has like a panic attack, and Peyton is like, put your mind elsewhere. And he's like, I can't, I just want to fucking stand up. I can't feel, like, I can't see, I can't. And he's like, would now be a terrible time to tell you that I got the door open? And Peyton goes, or Bauer goes, what? You're fucking kidding. And he goes, you're right, I am kidding. And so they both kind of laugh. And he's like, see, it's not so bad. You've been in a hyperbunk for at least 8 years. 5 more minutes in this vent is not going to kill you. So as Bauer is going down, he notices he's at an angle. He falls, hits his face on this grate. And I mean like a grate, like the little metal squares and he slams face first into that fucker. And he's not dead. I don't know how he's not dead. I would want to be dead. And he clearly does too. Like, Ben Foster's acting in this scene is great because he just doesn't say anything. He's just like, for a few minutes. And I'm like, yep. Yep. But as he's doing that, he picks up, they've got like these glow sticks basically, which is a really smart thing, but also it cracks me up because I'm like, that's just a giant fucking glow stick. And then you have to crack them. So he's running around this ship cracking these fucking glow sticks like he's Gaston trying to fix breakfast. Like, it's crazy. But after he cracks the glow stick, he's still like on his face essentially, cracks his glow stick and sees Cooper. And so this is how Cooper died, as Cooper fell down this vent. R.I.P. to Cooper. And Bauer lets Peyton know he found Cooper. R.I.P. He comes out of the top of a boot locker, and so it's like an overhead compartment boot locker thing. And I was like, so he literally just picked the worst grates, because like he opens the grate, falls through the boot locker. It's not like closed completely, so he falls out of that and lands on the floor, and it's like 5 feet, then 10 feet that he falls or some shit like that. And I'm like, man, worst day. Homeboy does not have good luck. And I wrote here that Dennis Quaid is so good at playing comforting authority figures. Like, he just seems like he calls people son in this movie sometimes, and he's like, it's all right, son, and I'm like, I'll be your son, Dennis Quaid. Thanks. I don't know why. I just think that. Which leads to the flip side of that. And the flip side of that is I would never want Dennis Quaid to yell at me. I would feel really, 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 really like Satan if Dennis Quaid yelled at me. Like, I would feel so bad. If he was yelling at me and angry at me, I'd be like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I did, but I'm sorry. Anyway, so Bauer gets up, sees a lady, and this lady splits. Like, she's like, pieces the fuck out of there. So he runs after her because he's like, don't run away. I want to talk to you. Like, I don't know what's happening. I really would like to know. So he comes down a corridor, thinks that his yelling has convinced her to stop running. And he's slowly walking up to her, asking her these questions. There's no response. And he's like, are you fucking deaf? And then it's like, no, that's not. That person's not responding because they're deaf. They're not responding because they're dead. Whoops. Because there's a dead guy hanging there. And so Bauer kind of like looks at how this man is hung. And it's not like he committed suicide. Because I thought for a second, like, oh, people on the ship are killing themselves rather than sticking around. That's not it. He has been strung up by a booby trap. And Bauer kind of sees that and registers that. So as soon as he sees that and registers that, though, surprise, we get Lady attack. She attack him. And he's trying to explain to her, like, I'm the flight crew. I'm part of flight crew. I'm the ship's engineer. I'm trying to figure out what the fuck is happening. And she just is not having any of it. She's like, we're not having a conversation. Give me your shoes. And he's like, what? And she's like, your shoes, take them off. And I was like, lady, there's a whole locker full of boots back there. If you would just shut up and talk to the guy, I'm sure he'd be happy to get you a pair of boots. There's like 80. So before she can get his boots, though, there's a sound and she splits again. She's fucking out of there. She zooms. And Bauer looks around and sees that these creatures came back for this hanging guy, and they're eating him. So they came back for their snack. And Bauer is like, I don't know what the fuck that is, because these things are not, they're like humanoid, but they are like, have weird facial features. They got weird spikes sticking out of them. They're just like the coolest looking creature design. And Bauer is not stupid. He's like, that's not human. I don't know what that is. And I'm not dumb enough to sit here and ask politely what the fuck they are. He books it and he hides. And so he goes back to the boot locker and is hiding up in there. One comes by and grabs Cooper's body, and poor Bauer is just trying not to pee his pants, essentially. And he had like a moment of radio silence where he was just in the wrong spot, couldn't get a hold of Lieutenant Peyton. So Peyton's still trying to get a hold of him while this thing is trying to kill him, find him, and his radio goes off as he's hiding. So he's like, oh my god. And you are also like, oh my god. And so he is whisper yelling at Peyton after the thing leaves, and he's like, there's no procedure for this. Like, yeah, no shit. What flight crew is actually prepared for an alien invasion? Like, there's no procedure for alien invasions because you don't know what the fuck the alien is gonna do. So Peyton says, look, it doesn't matter, because this is when he explains, like, we are the cargo, there's no going back, and there is no one here that's gonna help us. Like, we're too far out. No one is going to help us. There's no emergency rescues. Just because of the fact that we're Elysium. The Elysium. We're supposed to go to Taunus and start a settlement. And we're a ride or die. So if we can't ride, we're dying. So it doesn't fucking matter that there's cannibals on the ship or monsters on the ship or whatever the fuck on the ship. We have to get the ship to Taunus. That is our job. That is what we need to do if we want to save the rest of the crew, the rest of the people on the ship. Because they are not the only people on this ship. They're just the only people left from the flight crew. Which, again, piss poor planning, Elysium planners. Maybe you should have had more flight crew. Maybe you should have taught people how to do things on the ship. I understand everybody has their own area of expertise when they're trying to settle in a new area, but yeah, definitely should have had more flight crew for sure, especially because Bowers is running around, and as he's running around he thinks he sees something he shouldn't see, and his hands are shaking, and he says, hey Lieutenant, do you remember such and such crew? And he's like, are you talking about the worst fucking failure in, space flight history? Why would you bring that up? And he's like, I was just curious because what are the symptoms of Pandorum? And so we get this explanation about Pandorum. Pandorum is essentially a psychotic breakdown after being in a space bunk for so long and asleep for so long. So essentially the first, instance of it, this guy was asleep in his bunk. He was a lieutenant commander. He got out. He thought, for whatever reason, that the flight... It's so funny because it's basically like... It's kind of like a nod to Event Horizon without being a nod to Event Horizon. Because in Event Horizon, like, that shit actually happened. But in this story, this lieutenant wakes up on his ship and thinks that the flight is haunted. And that the only way to save people is to eject them into space. So he says 1,500 lives gone just at the push of a button. Because he ejects them into space. They lived for maybe 3 more days. And that was it. Because you only have so much oxygen in your emergency capsule. And so he killed everybody thinking he was saving everyone because he thought that the spaceship was haunted. And so because there was no crew out to get them, there was no way anyone was nearby enough to get them before those 3 days were over. And so this psychotic break, they called it Pandorum. For whatever reason. There's like a technical name that they use also in the movie, but the flight crews all call it Pandorum. So sometime around here, Bauer also has a revelation that it's not just the crew that's on this ship, because they're planning on settling on Taunus, right? So if Lieutenant Peyton is married, and he is, they want his wife to go with him because they're trying to make more humanity, and in order to make more humanity, you need to make babies. And in order to make babies, you have to have a boy and a girl. I'm sorry, you just do. Because they're going bare bones, right? They're bare knuckle human beings going out there. Basically caveman in it. So they're like, you need a boy and a girl. So if you're already married and you're on the flight crew, your spouse automatically gets a pass to go on this flight. And so when Bauer realizes this, he realizes his girl is probably on this flight. And so he wants to go find her ASAP, Rocky. And Lieutenant Peyton is like, think about this. If you go find her and you don't restart the reactor, what the fuck is the point? Now we've got these creepy crawlies running around. You need to start the reactor first, because then the security in the ship will kick up. And then it will kill all these things. So you can either go save her for 5 minutes and then she'll be dead, essentially, or you can go save the whole fucking ship and be the hero and everybody gets a happy ending. So Bauer is not stupid, like I said, so he understands he really needs to go restart this reactor. And this is also, if you have already seen the movie, you'll notice that there is a line that Lieutenant Peyton drops that kind of, at the time, was like, oh, maybe he's just oopsie doodling it because, you know, humans oopsie doodle things. But this is a movie, and so the oopsie doodle is not an oopsie doodle. It is a direct link to plot twists that are to come. So, if you're watching the movie, pay attention to that. Go find it. So, Bauer says he can reset everything manually, but he just needs to be there physically at the reactor. So, Peyton decides he's gonna find a route for Bauer to get to the reactor. This is the scene where the Pandorum conversation takes place, and so his hands are shaking, Bauer is, and we learn later on that is a symptom of Pandora's, your hands are shaking. Now, it's a very minor symptom, and it's very hard to catch, which James from Twilight tells us later on about that, because you're in a cryo chamber, so you're frozen, so your body goes through bouts of, like, trying to re-kick heat into its own system because it has grown accustomed to being cold, and so your body will just randomly start to shake. And so Bauer isn't sure if that's what's happening or if it's Pandorum, because again, one of the symptoms is shaking. Another symptom is nosebleeds. Thus far, no nosebleeds, so he's good. So this is when I noticed that someone is following Bauer, and this person is moving really swiftly. But I remember, thinking, like, it doesn't look like one of the creatures when I first saw it. But I was like, who the fuck else could it be but a creature? Is it the lady? I have no idea. Anyway, someone's following Bauer doesn't know. But Bauer does come across something, and that's kind of why he asks about Pandorum, is because he's like, I think I'm hallucinating. And Peyton is like, what are you seeing? And he's like, I swear I've seen this before. This guy was strung up and he was dead. But he walks up to the guy, and he's not dead. He's Norman Reedus. And so Norman Reedus wakes up and flips his tits. He's flailing. And he's like, dude, I need you to shut the fuck up. Like, stuff is happening on this ship. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to get you down for this booby trap, but you just need to shut the fuck up. And so Norman Reedus agrees. This guy is Team 6. He doesn't have a crossbow. So instead of, grabbing his crossbow, he decides to open a panel and dump like a bunch of oil out and rub it all over his body. And Bauer's like, what the fuck are you doing? And Norman is like, I'm trying to get the scent off. And he explains, like, those things are fucking fast and they'll eat you. And they're so strong. They're much stronger than you. The best option is always to fucking run and hide. But they can catch you because of your scent. So you need to not smell like you. You need to smell like the ship. And so Peyton is on the other line like, hey, you tell that guy, blah, 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 and I need him too, da, 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 da. And Bauer is like, your commanding officer is letting you know. And he was like, I don't fucking have a commanding officer. Don't you get it? This thing is fucked. We're dead. We're trying to survive now. I'm not taking order. And he's like, fuck you. And I'm like, that man just saved your life. He's also like, I can't help you. Because he finds out that Bauer just woke up and he's like, yeah, good fucking luck figuring out what the fuck is going on. I can't help you. Bye. And I'm like, that motherfucker, I can't even believe you. Like, he just saved your ass, and that's how you're gonna do. Fine. But then they see some cannibals, and Bauer does have, like, a self-defense weapon at this point. It's like an anti-riot wrist gun, basically, that shoots, like, a bolt of, like, electricity and air compression. And he's fixing to face off against these things with just that. And Norman Reedus is like, that's not gonna save you. And he books it. So Bauer kind of takes a hit from him, also books it. They get into this little area, and it's so funny to me, because I'm like, seriously, guy, why are you so dumb? Norman Reedus gets trapped by another booby trap. It's literally the same fucking mechanic, same fucking type of trap. Somehow, just got out of the last one. Now he's in another one. Unlucky, because the cannibal weird things come by and they start ripping into him stomach first, and they're passing around his organs and stuff and eating him alive, which is so sick. It's so cool. And then one of them sees, so like Bauer tries to attack one, but he doesn't realize there's a glass wall between him and the thing. And so when he shoots at the thing, it just bounces off the glass wall. And the thing knows he's there now. So Bauer has to bye-bye real fast out of there. And he's running and he gets caught. And you're like, oh shit. But the stalker turns out to be New Guy. It's New Guy. I love New Guy. He is a normal human being. He's part of the agriculture crew, according to his tattoo. But he does not speak a lick of English. So poor Bauer is trying to explain to him what's going on. This man doesn't understand. Bauer also doesn't understand this man. And it's so sad because you're like, why couldn't you have gotten them communicators or something? Put those on their wrists before they went into the cryo sleep chamber, or put them as part of their gear outside of the cryo sleep chamber. But no. Good luck trying to start new humanity not being able to fucking talk to each other. But Bauer says he needs to go to the reactor. Because Bauer, the New Guy obviously can tell that he's part of the flight crew because of Bauer's flight crew suit and also his tattoo and the badge he wears. And Bauer's like, yeah, I'm flight crew. I need to go to the reactor. I don't know what the fuck's going on, but you don't need to worry about that. You just go fucking hide. And I just want to point out that New Guy is peak fitness because he is awesome. You'll see a lot of that where you're just like, this man is peak fitness. I wish I had this man's strength and ability. So anyway, Bauer walks off, planning on leaving the New Guy behind. New Guy does whatever New Guy wants because New Guy doesn't speak English. He doesn't have to take your orders because he don't know what the fuck they are. And then in the meantime, we've got Peyton who's slamming the door of the bridge with literally just like a pipe. And I was like, Peyton wants in that bridge more desperately than Diddy wants baby oil. So that was my note. So then Dennis Quaid gets a nosebleed, and you're like, oh, Pandorum, dun dun dun. And then we get cut back to Bauer, who he literally I wrote that. So he walks through this door, and then he's in this little long rectangular room, and he gets to the other side of the long rectangular room, and it's actually a shipping container. And it's not just a shipping container, but it's a room of shipping containers. And I was like, why the fuck did they put that door there? That is the worst design ever. Are you trying to hide the door? I would do something like that if I was playing Sons of the Forest and being a crackhead. And that was part of the functionality of the game was yeah, you can build giant rooms full of trailer containers, but you can also put doors on the other side that lead into better hallways. And that's something I would do as a crackhead, but in a horror movie game. But this is not supposedly if this was a reality, you wouldn't do that because you would want people to be able to find that door. And if it's in the back of one of shipping container that's literally I wrote, this is the shipping container version of the door storage in Monsters Inc. That's what this is. So Monsters Inc., that door warehouse, that's this, but instead of doors, it's shipping containers. Why in the goddamn hell would you put the access to this room in the back of one of these shipping containers? That makes no sense on so many levels. But anyway, in the movie, he gets Lady Attack again. Then New Guy comes to the rescue, and New Guy is fighting Lady Attacker, and Bauer is sick of this shit. He sets off his little gun thing facing the ceiling, gets their attention, and he basically is like, we are now friends, we are play nice. I will fix ship, but we have to play nice, children. And so the children are like, okay. And this is kind of he gives this speech about, I know it seems like it's felt like every man for himself, but we need to work together in order to actually fix this stuff. We don't have to be like this. And that's kind of one of the things that I like about Bauer is he really sticks to this understanding of everyone and this situation. This place is a hellhole. And so he kind of gives everyone a free pass first. That's his first instinct is look, I understand you did what you have to do. Now we're doing this now. So shut the fuck up and fall in line because I'm fixing everything. And that's amazing. That's one of the best things about his character. So he's talking to Lady Attacker and New Guy, and he's like, I need to find the reactor. So New Guy is like, I can guide the way. But as they're going, the lady is like, hey, what are you going there for? And he's like, I'm the technical engineer of the flight, blah, blah, blah. I know how to fix this. And she goes, well, you're never going to make it there. And he goes, why? And she goes, because you're going the wrong way. And I was like, it's not New Guy's fault. He doesn't even speak English. Okay? He just wanted to help his new friend. But she's basically like, why should I trust you? He convinces her. He's like, so if you know we're going the wrong way, you know where it is, so you can take us there. And she was like, I don't like going down that far because nobody ever comes back. And she keeps like, it's so funny because she keeps shushing him because he keeps talking at normal levels. And this is a thing too, is like, her character choice as an actress is to whisper, and that is a very smart character choice. Like, it makes sense in this environment, even though some people are going to find it annoying. It makes sense. These things have better hearing and better sense of smell, and they're hunting you. You're gonna fucking whisper. You're not gonna start yelling at people or talking at normal volumes. Like, you are gonna whisper. That's gonna be your, like, MO. So, she keeps shushing him and he won't fucking listen. And then we get this, like, this tense moment of, like, is this door gonna open in time for them to go in and behind it? And it eventually does. And I like these creepos, the little creeper guys that are running around the ship hunting them. They're really fun. Their design is really fun. So they're in this, like, they make it through this door. They're in this lab now, and it's an ecological lab. Nadia says, that's Lady Attacker. She says that she lives in the lab, and he's like, you protect all this? And she was like, it seemed worth protecting. When I woke up, there was 5 of us, and we were part of basically the system of, we're the group of scientists that have the DNA specs of all of the animals on our planet so we can put them on the new planet. However, because the reactor is the way it is, and we do have backup generators here that power just this lab, it's still like there's probably at least 30% of these DNA samples are lost forever. And so she's like, I don't know if we can protect these anymore. Like, I just don't even know. But in their lab, they have like a little container full of locusts. So they have locusts for dinner, which is very crunchy, very nice. New guy thinks it's disgusting. He does not partake in locust dinner. So as they're talking, though, Bauer's like, how can it get this bad in 8 years? Nadia points out, I think we've been asleep longer than we think we have. Because this ship, it wasn't just built to last 123 years, and it wasn't just built to last 150 years. She says, you know, this ship was built to outlast our kids' kids. So I think we've been asleep a lot longer than we think. Then we get cut back to Peyton to see what he's doing, because they've lost communication together. They did that a while ago. They keep hitting dead spots, dead zones in the ship, so that's why Lieutenant Peyton is kind of doing his own thing at the moment, and he meets Gallows, and Gallows is naked. First of all, he's screaming, he's naked, he's coming out of the wall from a bunch of like tubes that go over to the bridge supposedly, and this is James from Twilight, so we get James from Twilight naked, screaming, being birthed out of the ship essentially. And he says he came from the bridge, but he can't say anymore. He's too dirty and too naked to say anymore. So Lieutenant Peyton is kind of like, ugh. So then we go back to Nadia and the crew and Bauer. And so Nadia's leading them, and they find the hypersleep chamber. It's just this big ass, and I mean big ass room full of sleeping people in their little slumber chambers. And she says we have to be really careful because this is the main hunting ground for the creepers. And we get to see this, and it's so sad, but essentially they wait for people to wake up and for their doors to open, and then they just rip them to pieces and eat them. It's horrible. And so he's like, is my spouse here, essentially? And she's like, no. She's like, well, was she part of the crew? And he's like, no, she's not personnel. And she's like, oh, okay, well then this is not where she is. They're further in the ship. So she's not here. She could be alive still. So during this section, there's like big chases. There's lots of fun stuff. It's just better to watch it than have me explain it to you. But they're eventually 1v1ing this creeper. And by 1v1ing, I mean 3v1ing, because it's the 3 humans against the 1 creeper. And it takes literally all 3 of them to kill this 1 creeper. And they still get their asses whooped. So they're really strong and really fast, and yeah, running seems to be the best idea. I also want to say, I wrote a note that I love the style, excuse me. So sorry, guys. The sickness is just jumbling words together, but I love the style of the makeshift weapons. God damn it. The makeshift weapons in this movie are so cool looking. And they're a lot of fun, because she carries around a dagger. New guy carries a spear for a little bit, But then he's got like a machete that he holds on to. Very, very fun. So they're running. I wrote run, Bauer, run. Someone wakes as they run, and that dude gets eaten. And it's very intense, and I love it. And it really, like, it doesn't cut away. So if you're one of those people who's like, I'm sick and tired of, like, if you want that balance of, like, I don't want excessive gore, but I also don't want pussyfooting around what's happening. I want to see, I don't want you to, shift away. This movie does that really well. It's a balance of realistic gore, and we're not pussyfooting away from what's happening. So that's kind of why I like this guy's style of directing. If anything gets cut down or neutered, essentially, it's because of the production company, not the director. Like, he had that scene where I think it was Lucius Malfoy in Event Horizon gets, blood-eagled. And he wanted to show it, and you see it from afar, but the production company was like, I don't think we can go closer because this is a rated R movie, and we're pussies. Anyway, Peyton is stuck with Gallo, and Gallo is the guy, like I said, it's James from Twilight, who literally, it looks like he's being birthed out of the ship. So Peyton's stuck in there with Gallo, and Gallo is, you might want to put him in a little hugger jacket. Maybe just need some self-hugging time for Gallo. But Peyton is trying to get information out of him. Gallo is team 4. And so he's like, you're our predecessor, so what the fuck happened? And he says that his other 2 teammates are dead because they came down with Pandorum. And it's really unlikely. So you can see Dennis Quaid is kind of like, do I believe this guy? He seems off anyway. But because he's a lieutenant and because he's trying to save this kid's life, he's being kind to this kid in a way where he's like, I didn't say I didn't believe you. I'm sure you had your reasons. Like, it's okay. Here's some clothes. Please stop being naked. I need you to pull your brain together so we can figure out what the fuck happened on the bridge, because he literally is just like, you don't want to go over there. You can't get into the bridge and you don't want to. So we cut back to what Bauer and the crew is doing. Because of their mad dash, they got lost, and the creepers are still on their tail. New guy finds this nifty little porthole to go through, and inside that little porthole, it locks. So they go through this little porthole, they lock themselves in, and there's this like dome-shaped room, kind of like this big circular room that they're trapped in. And of course, when they come in here, there's a crazy guy, because you can't just escape a bunch of creepy cannibals and not come across a crazy guy. And crazy guy is a lot of fun. They go in there, and of course they point their weapons at him, and he's like, whoa, I don't have a weapon, I'm unarmed. Let me just, so he turns on the lights, and he's like, welcome, you can come in, you can sit down, and they're like, why don't you come down here so we can meet you? And he's like, I haven't survived this long because I'd be trusting strangers, like, I'm not coming down there. But he does offer to feed them. He's like, I'm a really good cook. That's what I was actually sent to do, is to cook. So he cooks them food, and as he's cooking, we have Nadia and Bowers have this conversation where Bowers is like, okay, look, no hate. Is this something your lab did? Did your lab fuck us up like this? And she's like, no, that was not our job. And she was part of the crew who obtained the DNA samples. So she was part of this Elysium project, that aspect of it, from basically like day one. So she's like, we didn't do that. Absolutely not. That was not our purpose. That was not our goal. That's nothing, like, that was completely outside of our parameters. It's nothing we would have even thought of. But they put an accelerator in our bodies when we left Earth, so we could settle onto Taunus easier and evolve to Taunus easier. So basically, this shot that they give them, this chemical they put in their body, is to help kickstart evolution. And so she suspects they've been asleep a lot longer than they originally thought. So these guys have awoken. They're just woken up passengers that didn't know what to do. And so their bodies evolved to adapt to this ship rather than Taunus. So she thinks those cannibal things are actually just people. But they're obviously incoherent. They've evolved to live on the ship. And other than that, she doesn't really have much to give them. And she's like, I'm not sure what could have happened here. And then the crazy guy hears them. And he's like, oh, you don't know? You don't know what happened here? And he's like, let me tell you, I got a story to tell you. And this guy, first of all, they ask him how long he's been awake. And he goes, let's see, what's today? Tuesday, so I have no idea. And this is the only other comic relief except Peyton's joke at the beginning. And it's really fucking funny to me, just the line delivery. I love this crazy guy. This actor does a really good job in this role. He just does it in such a way that you're like, I hate him, but I love him. So anyway, crazy guy is like, I got a story to tell you. Because I've been around a while and I've seen some things. So I know what happened to this ship. And at the same time, we see that Lieutenant Peyton is preparing a sedative for Gallo, just in case Gallo, like, shows way too many signs of Pandorum. And then Gallo goes on and waxes poetic about the symptoms of Pandorum. I wrote, he's wildly paranoid or crazy. Because, like, he just is. That's the delivery. And then he explains, like, Pandorum is also activated and accelerated by trauma. And so he was part of the team that got the transmission from Earth that Earth was gone. And he literally explains, like, we looked for Earth. Like, we sent out, like, probes or whatever the fuck. We were scanning the universe, and Earth was just gone. Like, it was gone. They sent a message that said that they were gone. Fucking yeah. It wiped clean. Nothing. So as Gallo is explaining this, like, clinical side of things, the scientific, like, delivery of what happened, crazy guy's waxing poetic about it. Like, he lives to tell stories, and this guy is fucking telling this story, and it is so good. I don't even want to, like, go through what crazy guy says. I just want you to watch it. Like, honest to God. It's really fun the way he explains what happened. Versus Gallo. And Gallo only explains the very basic first part of what happened, which is they got this transmission, and then his crewmates got Pandorum. So from there, we pick up, and crazy guy talks about how that there were 3 crewmates. One of them went crazy after hearing that Earth was destroyed. So this crazy one killed the other 2. Then he decided to take control of the ship and make himself both, like, God and the devil. So he made himself into the ship's king. And anyone who disagreed with him, he would banish them to the cargo hold, which is how you got these cannibal guys. Is they were banished to the cargo hold, they had to survive, that chemical kicked in, they evolved. So this guy also, the crazy guy, who we assume to be Gallo now, Gallo essentially started torturing people for fun, because why not? He's God. He's the only one who knows how to wake up the other flight crew. He made it so that they wouldn't wake up. So now everybody has to do what he wants them to do, because he's the only one who knows how this ship works, which, again, fuck the people who decided what was going to happen on this flight, you dumbasses. You know Pandorum is a thing, and you only have 3 people per crew, and then on top of all of that, you don't even, like, have people who are, like, extra, oh, I know how to, like, fix this in case all the crews, the flight crews get fucking Pandorum. Like, fuck you. You guys suck. Worst planners ever. Fire them. I'm glad Earth was destroyed and you don't get to have another job because you suck at planning. And so the crazy guy, sorry, let me just reacclimate. The crazy guy now, he explains that eventually Gallo, the last surviving crew member, gets bored of torturing people to death, so he puts himself back into his hyperbunk to awaken with everybody else when we reach Tanis. As he's explaining this, Peyton starts shaking, which Dennis Quaid's acting in that scene is really good. That's just like a moment that lives in my brain rent-free, because they're like, maybe he's coming down with Pandorum. And then, as crazy guy's talking, you see that Bauer, New Guy, and Nadia are all being knocked out. He's gassing them. They wake up, and obviously they're tied up. The crazy guy wants to eat them. And Bauer literally says, and I love this because this would be me, and he literally says, don't be fucking stupid, I can fix the fucking ship. And I was like, God damn, if that ain't the realist, though. If I were Bauer, that's where I would be. He literally tells Crazy Guy to, like, listen to the ship. The reactor is almost dead, but I can stop it. There's only, like, 40 more minutes. He's like, so how long until the reactor goes completely kaput? And he's like, probably an hour. We might have an hour, and I can reset it within that hour, and then it won't go kaput because I can purge the system and make it restart. And so he also tells Crazy Guy, and like I said, this is what he does for everyone, like, no one's gonna judge you. You were a survivor. You did what you had to do to survive. And he's like, that's okay. This place is hell. We're all just trying to live. It's cool, but help us now and everything will be even better. So, Crazy Guy does let them down. They radio Peyton, and he says they have Peyton do like a specific system test to see how much time they have. And they have less than 47 minutes until complete annihilation. So they come across this alien kid too, which I feel like this is like some kind of like sub theme maybe, or just like a subplot that doesn't get enough attention. Personally, I think it could have been cut out because this movie is like 2 hours long. So there's an alien kid. They don't kill it. Nadia's like, don't kill it. It's just a child. New guy was going to, but he doesn't because Nadia stops him. Alien kid calls for his daddy. They got to skedaddle. Back at the flight deck, we have this thing where Peyton and Gallo are arguing a lot. Partially because Peyton doesn't have patience for this kid. Partially because this kid is an absolute Fruit Loop. And really obviously psychotic. And having a breakdown. Like, my dad, we were watching and my dad was like, why doesn't he just put him over those cryo bunks? This kid is obviously not safe. He's unstable. And I was like, that's where I would be. But they kind of have this back and forth where Peyton is like, we need to wait for Bauer. Bauer is going to restart the ship. The ship will be fine. And Gallo is like, the ship is fucked. We need to get into escape pods. We need to escape. And Peyton is like, that doesn't make any logical sense because even if we escape in an escape pod, we're going to fucking die because there is no one else in the galaxy now. It's just us. Just us. We're going to fucking die. That is a bad plan. And so him and Gallo have this back and forth about it. Gallo makes a comment like, oh, so we're going to wait for the Boy Scout to save us. And you're like, how the fuck does he even know Bauer? Because if he's on the previous flight team, that just doesn't make too much sense. But then we get cut back to Bauer and crew, and they realize that they have run into the storage for the personnel's families, and they're all fucking dead. Everybody's dead. And Bauer realizes his wife isn't there, and she was never there. She left him rather than fly with him to Taunus, which at this point, good choice, lady. Definitely a good choice. But as he's looking around, he finds Lieutenant Peyton's wife's cryo chamber, and he says, I remember now. So he has a mini crisis about this, like about his wife not being there and how she left him. Like, he's like, what's the point? And for me, I'm like, this is kind of the weirdest part of the movie is for him to be having this crisis right now because he's the one telling everybody and who has been telling everybody we can rebuild, we're supposed to move on, we can make it. But Nadia talks him down basically and is like, we need to make it. It's more important now than ever. So then that's when Bauer says he remembers Peyton's wife Marianne and what happened. So then we cut back to Gallows and Peyton, and Gallows' nose is leaking like a faucet. And he's still trying to convince him, like, we need to eject everyone. And Peyton points out that that's suicide. And Gallows is insistent. And this is the part where Dennis Quaid yells at Gallows. And he's like, I'm ordering you to stand down. And I was like, please don't yell at me, Dennis Quaid. I don't ever want that. It's making me scared and sad. So Peyton and Gallo, they have a big argue. Literally, I wrote, why isn't he locked Gallo up? Homeboy is so fucking bonkers. In the meantime, the crew is still moving. Bowers and Nadia and them, they're still moving to get to the reactor. They come across the big nest. Got some high tension moments. He's crawling along and among the sleeping creepers. And in the meantime, Peyton has somehow gotten control of the sedative, and he's got it to, Gallo has control of sedative. He's trying to convince Peyton to, eject him at least. So the crew did this really smart thing where they had a fake simulation for ejection, specifically for people who are suffering from Pandorum. So literally, he's like, you're going to eject me out of the ship right the fuck now. I'm leaving. I'm not dying. So he gets put in his little cryo chamber. Dennis Quaid presses some buttons, and it's like acts like it's going to start up, and then it shuts down, and it says like simulation complete, and Gallo is pissed. It's so good. And he fucking loses it. He's like, I'm going to carve you like a fish, and all kinds of stuff. And Peyton is just really like calmly like, you're not well. It's not your fault. It's okay, son. You know, we're going to get you help once we get to Tanis. So then we have, you know, Bauer's trying to do his Mission Impossible bullshit, crawling through the creepers and everything. And it's going very well until Crazy Guy drops a flashlight, and then everybody, all the creepers wake up and they go fucking running. New Guy starts yelling at them, though, so they go after him. I have no idea what he's saying in his language. I hope someone who knows that language watches this movie and lets me know. Like, I don't even know, like, it's just some kind of Asian language. I don't know if it's, you know, some Vietnamese, or if it's, you know, Korean, or if it's Chinese, or, like, I don't think it's Japanese, but other than that, I have no idea what he is saying or where he is from. So, he starts yelling. They all book it after him. Well, half of them book it after him. Bauer books it to the reactor, makes it in time. Reactor go brrr. And then in the meantime, Gallo, now that they're, you know, back on the flight deck, everything's working again. Peyton's like, he fucking did it. Gallo's like, you're right, sir. Let me out. I can help you. I'll help you. And Peyton is just ignoring him. And finally, Gallo gets a little extra crazy, starts calling Peyton Corporal, and tells him the others will know what he did. He's like, they're not going to let you get away with it. You know, you're not getting away with this. They'll know what you did. You need to let me out. And Dennis Quaid is having, like, weird brain, like, headache looking things. And so he just tells him to shut the fuck up and puts his little cryo chamber on mute because it's soundproof. And eventually Gallo breaks out, and him and Dennis Quaid struggle with the sedative, and it goes into Dennis Quaid's arm. And when it does, like, right before it does, the two merge. And so now you understand that Gallo was in Peyton's head the whole time, right? And if you're, you know, someone who's curious, you might think, like, maybe Gallo was just a hallucination the whole time and it was always Peyton. But it's actually the other way around, where Peyton has actually been Gallo's the whole time, and he was just pretending to be Lieutenant Peyton. And I have theories for this that I will talk about at the end. So if you're like, why the fuck would he do that, aside from wanting to get what he wants, I will let you know at the end. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, New Guy has Mortal Kombat fight with the Dad Beast and wins. And it's so funny because while we were watching it, my dad was like, finish him. And I was like, that's literally what I was thinking about the whole time. Like, every time I watch this, I just think it's a Mortal Kombat scene. And it's a really good action sequence, too. So after he kills the dad, the baby shows up, and the baby kills New Guy, unfortunately. And I'm like, we need to name the new colony after New Guy, whatever the fuck his name was, because that guy was sick, and he just sacrificed himself to save all of humanity. What a good guy. He's now best friend. So after reactor gets reset, it's running fine. It's going burr. You know, Crazy Guy, Nadia, and Bauer take off running. Crazy Guy's ahead of them. He locks them in between two sets of doors. So the creepers have to get through door A, then they'll find Bauer and Nadia, then they have to get through door B to get to Crazy Guy. And it was really, honestly, kind of very unnecessary. What a dick. But Crazy Guy first makes it to the flight deck, and he's trying to explain to Gallo who he is, who Gallo, again, is just Lieutenant Peyton. Lieutenant Peyton was actually Gallo the whole time. So he's trying to explain to Gallo who he is. Gallo don't give a fuck. Puts a needle right in Crazy Guy's eye, like the little sedative needle, and it goes all the way in, so it kills Crazy Guy, which, not a great way to go, but Crazy Guy kind of deserved it. So Nadia and Bauer somehow bust in through that door. They see that Crazy Guy is dead. Crazy Guy also had the, like, wrist cuff explodey device, so Bauer takes it back. And Nadia's like, where's your commanding officer? And he's like, I don't have a commanding officer. So they go to the bridge. And Gallo tells him who he is. He spills the beans. They're like, where are we? And he's like, why don't you take a look? So Nadia's looking out the flight deck, or the bridge's window, to see where they are. And in the meantime, Peyton, who is actually Gallo's trying to convince Bauer to join the dark side. Then we can have cookies. Everything is better on the dark side because you don't have any morals. And when you don't have any morals, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Nobody can tell you what to do because you and I are the only ones who know how to fly this stupid thing. So we're the gods of this ship. And he literally says, I'm trying to give you the keys to the kingdom, son. And Bauer is like, you're fucking crazy. He says, I'll get the sick out of you even if I have to pull it out. And he pulls out pliers from nowhere and he pulls out one of Gallo's teeth. And you're like, what is happening? Can you guys calm down? And while that's happening, Nadia's like, Bauer, come look. So Bauer leaves Peyton bleeding on the floor, goes over there, looks up through the bridge's window and sees basically jellyfish. Like it's kind of like a Subnautica thing where you're like, this is some kind of sea life form. I don't know how I know that. I just know that because they look like sea life forms. And so she goes, we're underwater. We've been on Taunus this whole time. Which makes me want to end myself if I'm Nadia. Anyway, because she's been awake for like 6 months, this girl, fucking dodging these creepers, hoping that they make it to Taunus. If I were her, I'd be mega pissed. Anyway, Peyton wakes up, Gallo wakes up, and again, tries to convince Bauer it's good to be bad. And he's like, we can do whatever we want. We're God. We can do what we want here. And him and Bauer scuffle. Bauer pretends to go crazy. Then Nadia is like, hey, you leave my new boyfriend alone. There's probably literally no one else alive. And I've been alone for 6 months. I'm not trying to do that again. So she tries to fight Gallo. Gallo's fighting her. Bauer wakes up. And his crazy brain, he is currently suffering from Pandorum because of the trauma, right? His crazy brain, though, is still locked into being a good guy. Because instead of shooting Nadia or Gallo, he shoots a little door because he thinks there's stuff coming out of it, and there's not. The door launches up and hits the bridge window and causes there to be a breach in the bridge. And so, first of all, this is not how this would happen. If you hit... My dad is an ex-Navy submariner, and like I said, a nuclear engineer, so... we had like that Titanic fiasco where that little tiny submarine made out of paper mache or whatever went down to the Titanic to take a look at it. And because their Xbox controller ran out of control battery, they died. Basically what had happened with that was there was a hole in the paper mache submarine and it imploded. It exploded. It is instantaneous because of all the pressure down there. So depending on how deep they are in this ocean in Taunus, instead of the hull slowly filling up and the bridge and the flight deck slowly filling up with water, what would actually happen is that they would be eviscerated and it would fill up instantaneously because all the pressure would rush in at once. Okay? In this movie, we get, and this is what you often get in movies, and this is, again, another reason I watch sci-fi movies with my dad, because he points things like this out. And now I don't have to point them out anymore he doesn't have to point them out to me, I just recognize them now, this would not happen. But because there's a hole in the hull, breach in the bridge, these are actually, sorry, sickness just got ahead of me, I'm like, those are fun sayings, breach in the bridge, hole in the hull. Anyway, Bauer grabs Nadia and takes them to his cryo chamber because there's an oxygen mask in there. They can, they can suit up or they can shore up the thing, just close it, and then they will be ejected from the ship because obviously the computer system understands that if there's a hole in the ship, that means that their mission is compromised and there's an emergency situation where they need to eject all of the people in the pods. So all viable pods are then ejected from the ship. Very good, smart move. Like, instantaneous. You don't even have to press a button. You're all getting the fuck out of there. Anyone who's still alive is getting out. And out of the, I think it's 50,000 or some stupid shit people, there's only 1,600 pods that are viable. That's how many fucking people Gallo's got killed. What a piece of shit. Gallo does not move from the bridge. He's not doing it. And, again, I'm going to tell you the theory on that in a second. But Bauer and Nadia get in the cryo chamber. They get shot up to the surface. Ta-da, they've made it to Taunus. Other people get shot up to the surface. Ta-da, humanity survives, lives at least one more day. Now, Gallo could have gone into the flight deck and gotten into a different cryopod and also been ejected out, but he didn't do that. Why? That's the difference between young Gallo and Dennis Quaid Gallo. young Gallo put himself back to sleep because he recognized after 50 or so years, 20, 30 years or whatever it was of playing God, that they are going to reach Tanis, and they need to reach Tanis. And so he wanted to reach Tanis and reintegrate into society, wake up, act like he had no idea what the fuck happened, and get off scot-free, right? Because he's like, how many people are going to remember all the people that I, that disagree with me? I banished them to the hole. He's probably assuming that they're dead. And so his plan, like I said, he put himself back to sleep. Crazy guy confirms that guy put himself back to sleep because he wanted to just act like none of it ever happened. He wanted to reintegrate into society on Tanis with everyone else, be a hero because he was part of the flight crew. The flight crew is basically the heroes of this thing, and then just reintegrate. And Gallo, the adult Gallo, the Dennis Quaid Gallo, didn't want that. He wanted to keep playing God. So after being asleep for so long, his personality is kind of like his two desires became two different things that were fighting each other. And so young Gallo wanted that. And that's why he still was like, eject us, blah, 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 because he knows that they've made it to Tanis by now. So he's like, just eject us in the pod. We'll float up to the surface essentially, and we'll just be able to live. He doesn't say it like that because that would ruin everything. And also Dennis Quaid's character is crazy. So like, obviously he's not going to spell everything out for himself or for us because he's a crazy bitch. But that's why Gallo in the end does not leave, because he even says to Bauer, I don't even remember life before this flight started. This flight is my life. So old Gallo does not want to leave because he's reminiscing, wanting the older days, right? And he wants those days to continue. He wants to continue playing God and judge and jury and executioner. He wants to continue having his own fun. Versus younger Gallo, which is just a different part of his personality, a different part of his subconscious mind, recognizes that there's only so much time they can do this. So that's kind of like the in-between there. Because you really do wonder, well, how did they get from here to here? And while they're talking in the bridge, Bauer has the system tell him how long they've been flying, and it's 900 something years. So instead of 123 years being on the ship, they've been on the ship for like 1,000 basically. And so that's a long time for everything to get really fucked up. Especially after Gallo went to sleep, he just said, fuck it. We'll make it. It's on autopilot. Whatever. I'm not a navigator. I'm not really in charge. We make it. If we don't, we don't. I'm sick of living. So I'm just going to go to sleep and hopefully wake up on Tanis. And so that's why when he wakes up, he genuinely is confused. However, he wanted to pretend to be Peyton again because he wanted to pretend that he didn't do any of those bad things. He'll just reintegrate his ass back into society. And for everyone who was like, well, why did everybody just listen to him when it was just him awake? Like, because he was the only flight crew member awake. He tells it's really easy to just say, hey, all the other flight crew is dead. I'm the only one who knows how to pilot this son of a bitch. You're going to do what I say or you're going to die. And so that's why he's not waking up the other flight crew. He's waking up the members of the agricultural team, and he's waking up the spouses because they have no value to him personally or value to Tanis, essentially, not in the long run, because Gallo is a piece of shit. So as a piece of shit, you're like, I don't give a fuck that this is someone's spouse. They can just marry someone else on Tanis, and then I'll do whatever I want with this person here now, and I'll be the god. And that's literally Gallo's MO after he finds out that Earth exploded. And hopefully I explained all the reasons why that I can think of well enough, and all the plot reasons well enough. I am sick, so my brain, if I didn't, I would not know. Half of my brain is like, no, you explained it well, but then the other half of me is like, can you even trust you? You're sick. Your brain is functioning on like 0.4%. So if I didn't, please leave comments. I will answer your questions. This movie is so fucking good, though. The special effects are good, aside from the CGI. The characters are fun. The storyline is out of this world, literally. But just very good movie. I was pleasantly surprised. This is the kind of sci-fi horror I dig. It's very Alien. It's very Event Horizon. I think Paul W.S. Anderson should be allowed to make like 50 more sci-fi horror movies. any sci-fi horror movie in the universe that you have, please pitch it to him. Please give it to him. Please let him direct it. I want him to direct it. I need like 50 more of these films that are like this, that have this tone and this atmosphere. It's just so fucking good. So, and also let me know what you think. If you're gonna watch it, let me know. If you watched it, you liked it, let me know. If you watched it, you didn't like it, let me know your reasons. Other than that, some housekeeping stuff. Typically, I say I'm gonna throw out an episode of the last Tuesday of every month. That probably won't be happening the last Tuesday of this month because I fucked up my whole schedule with life issues. So, it probably will be happening again December, though, the last Tuesday of December, whenever that is. And I might release an episode between now and then, depends on if I find something that I can review in that amount of time and something that I really enjoy. I always say that, you know, like having the following that I have, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You know, it's nice because I can review whatever the fuck I want, whenever the fuck I want, because my following's not big enough that there's not like 1,000 people knocking on my door like, where the fuck is the episode? And there's also not 1,000 people knocking at my door like, I need you to review this specific movie that everybody loved and you fucking hate. So, you know, that's kind of nice. But at the same time, I really want people to know about movies like this that are fucking good, that kind of just flew under the radar. I mean, it gives me a lot of breathing room, so maybe too much sometimes. But if you like my podcast, please follow it here on YouTube, here on Rumble, wherever you're listening. On Rumble, if you're following Beware the Moon podcast, I also do playthroughs of different games. Every Tuesday, I do Stardew Valley with a group of my friends. So not scary, but just a lot of fun banter. And then, I mean, obviously, I talk with chat and everything like that as well. And the friends that I play with, I met online. That's how you know that I actually genuinely think they're fun, because I met them online and I still play games with them. And I'm like, come check us out. And I give them, you know, dedicated days of my week, just because they're so much fun. But do that on Tuesdays, and then on Saturdays we do Survival Saturday, which is playing Sons of the Forest, which is a horror game. We've made quite a bit of progress with that. So go check me out on Rumble and you'll see some of that streaming stuff. If you want to support the channel, also please go check me out on Rumble. Wait for me to go live. Subscribe. I go live in the evening my time. Usually Stardew Crew starts at 8 p.m. So on Tuesdays. So that would be a great way to support the channel. Other way to support the channel that absolutely costs you nothing is just telling people about the channel, having them look it up, having them take a listen. I am the type of person that does not want to get something from you for nothing. So please do, if you think someone really would enjoy this channel, you know, have them check it out, invite them to check it out, give them the URL, whatever. That's my favorite mode of support. It's just having more listeners, more followers, more interactions. Genuinely, as a content creator, it makes me the happiest to have that specific sort of support. Than if you just throw some money at me. I mean, throwing money at me is great. And it's the other thing about throwing money at me is I can justify spending my time on more time on stuff like this, because time is money. Unfortunately, I live in America, and that's how it is in America in this day and age. Time is money. So if you have the ability to give and you want to, feel free over there at Rumble. I might make a community thing, locals, that's what it's called, a locals account. But for now, this is just the best way to do it, honestly, is to invite other people, because that motivates me more, and honestly, I can justify my time the more I'm just getting in from stupid ad revenue. And I appreciate it. I genuinely appreciate people listening. If you've made it this far, you're the reason I do this podcast. Well, the secondary reason. The first reason is because I like doing this podcast. But the reason why I keep doing it and putting it out to other people is because of you who have made it this far into the podcast. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. If you felt down this week, just know there's someone out there. I'm just a dog-brained raccoon, but I do appreciate you. So at least someone appreciates you out in the universe. That's the genuine truth of it. And the community we have over on Rumble, too, is like that. So if you need some more encouragement, emotional support, join us over there. We've got you. Last week I had a friend who had a very significant occurrence in his life. And the amount of people that came out and just showed him support and love was very encouraging. Even as one of those people, I was encouraged by everybody else doing it too. And that's the kind of community we have over on Rumble. So if that's something you're looking for, definitely check me out on Rumble. I'll connect you with people like that, because that's important. Everybody, I feel like I said at the beginning of the episode, there's a lot of people out there who are doomsayers. They think the world's going to end in like 5 minutes. Clearly that's not the case. I've been through literal hell. My story's a weird one. I've seen some shit. And I'm still here. So the odds that you're still going to be here tomorrow, whether the world turns to shit or not, is pretty high. And if you need some help getting through that, join us over on Rumble, specifically on Rumble because of the interaction rate. It's a very high interaction rate, excuse me, Jesus fuck. Not just with myself, but the other creators on there. And there are a lot of good people over there. So thank you guys for listening very much. I hope you're having a good week. Hope you're having a good month. I hope this month is not a tough one for you. I know with the holidays coming up, that's tough for some people, whether because they don't have loved ones or because they've lost loved ones in the past. So you'll be in my thoughts and in my prayers. And anytime you feel down, just come back here to that segment of the podcast even and just re-listen to that for yourself, because you are being thought of and you are being loved, even if it's from a stranger and even if it's from afar. Just know that you are important and special. And don't let these holidays get you down. Don't let the sadness get you down. You're worth it. You're worth it. So once again, just thank you for listening. Like I said, usually last Tuesday of every month. That'll start again next month. Another podcast episode. Check me out on Rumble, Beware the Moon podcast. That's where I do all the streaming weird stuff. And that's all I've got going so far. Hopefully you're doing well. But be good, be safe, love yourself, and love each other. Thank you very much.